Hola, hola, my name is Ramon, cosmetic formulator, esthetician, and you can see I'm here with a super special guest, Alli Reed from Stratia. I'm actually in Los Angeles in the brand new Stratia space, and today we're going to be doing a tour, having a little interview, and just finding out what goes on behind the scenes of a brand. Alli, thank you so much for having us.
Of course, I am so excited that you're here. We finally get to meet in person, and I wanted to show everyone around our new space that we just moved into last month. It's a little bit of a work in progress, so don't judge it too harshly. This is a big space that I also haven't totally figured out. I promise the tour will get more exciting soon. But I figure as we expand, we'll get more staff. I think this would be a cool place to work. And then we've also got this big white wall. I think for events, it could be great to project films, but play around with that a lot.
And aside from you, how many employees are based here in Stratia HQ?
We have got 5 employees in this building and 1 employee remote in New York. And that is the entire company, including manufacturing.
Speaking of manufacturing, let's go check out the other side.
This is my baby. This is our warehouse manufacturing space. So you can see all of these boxes behind me. Those are all the empty packaging for Stratia products. So those are the empty bottles that we then fill with magical skincare goodies. And this is where the magic happens. This is our manufacturing space where we make every single Stratia product. We do it right here in-house. We've got our custom mixer for making all the products you know and love. And I think it's just such an amazing thing that we get to do this all right here.
So here we are in the marketing mezzanine of Stratia HQ. And Alli, I have a couple questions I want to ask, just kind of getting a good behind the scenes look at what happens when you own a brand, especially because Alli is not only the founder, but also the formulator for all the products, and really asking the questions of when it comes to product development, formulating a product, and especially when you are an indie skincare brand, what does that all look like? So when it comes to like your passion for skincare and science, what from your pre-Stratia days did you really want to bring into Stratia as a brand?
When I started Stratia, I wanted to create skincare that I couldn't find as a customer. So I think that meant both from the formulation of making sure that they were products where like the ingredients actually do things. There's nothing in there that's just to like make it look good on the ingredients label. The Stratia philosophy is really about like nourishing your skin, being kind to your skin rather than trying to like burn your face off with 30% glycolic acid. But I also wanted to be really transparent with how everything is formulated so that like, you know, there could be products that really were effective, but I didn't know whether they were or not because like I was only getting what was like filtering through their marketing department. Kind of that efficacy and transparency was what guided Stratia initially.
What kind of skincare were you like really into before then? We talked about K-beauty earlier.
Yeah, so I was big into K-beauty and Japanese beauty as well. I really love Hada Labo, the Japanese brand. I think that, you know, sort of similar to a Stratia aesthetic, a very simple, effective, fragrance-free formulations. But my core routine was really based on layers of products where each one has a really specific focus and really does what it says it does.
I feel like people just assume when it comes to formulating ingredients, you just throw a bunch of things in a bowl, mix it all together, and it's all done. As we got to see today, and you'll see later in the video, there's a lot more that goes into formulating a product. What makes the formulating process so complex?
It's really similar to baking, I think. There's a lot of theory that goes into it. You can create a recipe in your mind, and there's a lot of science, especially, you know, with baking, like the specific ratios of baking powder and things like that. But it's also like baking in that you kind of just have to try it and see if it works. And you get a lot of disgusting flat cupcakes before you find one that works. Trial and error and iterate.
I know for your C+C serum, you had how many iterations of that?
60.
60. And what does a bad formula look like, especially in that regard?
There are an infinite number of bad formulas, and they're like, you know, for every one good formula, there are 8,000 bad versions of that formula. So for me, a bad formula can be, you know, technical. It can be these layers separated out. They, you know, it clumped or curdled or something. It can be textural and aesthetic. This feels too greasy. It feels too silicone-y. It wasn't formulated correctly in a way to deliver the actives to the skin. So even if it feels nice, it's not doing what it said. As many ways to fail as there are colors in the rainbow is just very hard to get it right.
What are the qualities in a product that matter most to you, or like they're the most tedious to get like just right, where you're like, this texture is still not right, the feel of it, like what is the most important to you?
For something like a moisturizer that is an emulsion between oil and water layers, I think, you know, I have super dry skin, so I tend to go for heavier creams, but heavier creams can feel so greasy so quickly. So finding that really precise balance between like it's moisturizing and nourishing, but not greasy or waxy or heavy or like that suffocating feeling that you can get on your skin. That comes down to the emulsifier you choose plays a huge role in it, as well as emulsion stabilizers like fatty alcohols and things like that, emollients and oils you're choosing. There's just a lot of different factors.
And then when it comes to not only just that, but also what you choose to highlight in a product, what influences your choice of what to include in a product, even outside of just the actives?
When I formulate, I tend to pick a specific ingredient, a specific combo of ingredients, a specific like skin target, and then formulate everything around that. So that obviously comes into play with the actives I'm choosing to make sure it's actually doing what it says. It comes into play with the emollients and emulsifiers I'm choosing because the best skincare is the one you'll use. And so it doesn't matter how great the actives are. If it feels unpleasant, you're not going to use it on your face. It comes down to the preservatives I choose to make sure that it is going to be stable on your shelf. Retinol is an amazing product, but if it's a moldy retinol product, it's going to be much less effective. So, you know, making sure that everything kind of plays into the larger goal, either directly or indirectly.
When it comes to actually like creating that product, let's say one day you wake up, you're like, I'm going to make this product today. What is your process then for actually developing the product, developing the formulation, and how do you go about testing the product? Like
for Night Shift, which is our retinol night cream, I knew I wanted a retinol product, and I really liked the idea of a retinol night cream being this sort of like multifunctional active, something that, you know, will do that, all those amazing properties that retinol does, but in a way that's also like you can kind of use it as a one and done at the end of the night. So that was like conceptual. I knew I wanted something like that. So then the rest of the formulation was like, okay, so retinol can be irritating. I should add some anti-inflammatories to make sure that it's not, you know, going to cause too much redness. Adding the oils and emollients that are nourishing enough to be an actual night cream and not like just a light moisturizer. Working through that in my head and creating what I thought would be a good formula, and then trying it and realizing, oh wait, this is way too heavy. Oh wait, you know, I don't think that the retinol is able to penetrate with all these ingredients, you know, so then just working through and fixing my mistakes until I got to the end.
You have a specific mailing list of people you send the products out to as well, right?
I do. So I think one thing that a lot of skincare companies don't do is take into account how different and unique everyone's skin is. So there are just so many different skin types, tones, textures, ages, concerns. So I have a list of about 1,000 people who have volunteered to test my lab creations. So I will come up with a prototype, test it on myself to make sure it's not going to burn me. Once I feel like it's pretty good and it's safe, I'll send it out first come, first serve. Usually the samples are claimed in like 60 seconds. Then they have to test it for 30 days and fill out this massive survey. Sorry guys, everything they liked, didn't like, how it worked, how, you know, any negative effects, any significant positive effects. And then I can use that information to iterate so that, you know, I think most cosmetic formulators really only test it on their own faces, which is a great way to create your own personal skincare routine, not necessarily something that's going to work for everyone.
And some questions that I got submitted. First one was actually a very popular one. In a world right now where clean and free from are the primary marketing claims, Stratia has been pretty unique and not really going down that route and being very, very science and skin led. Was that done very intentionally?
That was done extremely intentionally. We definitely don't count ourselves as among the clean beauty because I think that that word is really fraught and loaded and doesn't really adhere to science. So the health and safety of our customers is the most important thing to me, absolutely, which is why I take that so seriously that I'm going to really investigate the actual science behind each ingredient. And so a really common example is parabens, which are a preservative that we use loud and proud. That's because I care so much about the health and safety of our customers that, you know, parabens, because they are so maligned, they have been studied and studied and studied and studied way more than any other preservative on the market, shown to be 100% safe when used topically. Because I think, remember, things that are used on your skin, which is meant to keep the outsides out, is really different from injecting something or eating it, which is how these things are usually tested. Not only that, they're the best preservative on the market, they're best at keeping you safe from mold, bacteria, and yeast, which is a really, I mean, it's a really common issue with cosmetics, because like, think about making up a smoothie and then putting it in your bathroom cabinet for a year at room temperature. Skincare is just really ripe for bacteria, mold, and yeast. And so it is really important for your health and safety to have a really robust preservative system.
And when it comes to how you choose a product to really highlight and make that star ingredient in a product, do you go off of, as you mentioned, like what skincare consumers really want? What you're noticing is getting like a lot of clinical trials and a lot of like traction in like the science community. Like, how do you go about what's going to be like the next featured active?
A phrase I use to myself to describe Stratia products is unsexy skincare. So we tend to avoid the super trendy stuff. Like, you're never going to see a CBD product from us. We really want a line that's built around really thoroughly well-tested scientific efficacy. So that means using unsexy, somewhat boring ingredients that really, really work. So retinol, you know, as opposed to some of the sort of like fancy new retinol replacements, you know, like that the ingredients that are tested super, super well. And I am also interested in new developments in the scientific community. I think there are a lot of new kind of derivatives of ingredients that are much less irritating or are better for darker skin tones, or, you know, that can still draw on a huge range of research on a specific ingredient, but have found ways to make it more accessible.
And then based on your own personal skincare philosophy, how does that translate into the type of products you try to bring into Stratia's lineup?
My personal philosophy on skincare is to treat your skin like an ally rather than an enemy. So your skin, when it is healthy, when it has what it needs, can do really great things to fight off a lot of those skincare ills that we're fighting. Oh, you know, blemishes, flaking, and hyper oiliness and things like that. So that was, I mean, Liquid Gold was one of the first products I launched with, which is meant to mimic and reinforce your skin's natural moisture barrier. And so that's kind of what I think of with all Stratia products. I formulate them with sensitive skin in mind, because I think, first of all, that way it can reach everyone. And second of all, I think people can sometimes go way too hard on their skin and really try to like burn things off and exfoliate until they get to the buried gold they think is underneath their skin, when really I think in a lot of cases, treating your skin really gently, using a lot of nourishing, hydrating, emollient products might actually serve you better in the long run.
I know that you started this as like a one-woman show. Mm-hmm. From the beginning, you've grown and grown and grown, but I also know that you've had to learn things the hard way. What is some troubleshooting, bloopers, blunders you've had to personally deal with when it comes to developing and formulating?
So I founded Stratia by myself in my apartment, no co-founders, no experience in the beauty industry. My entrepreneurial philosophy is like, make a mistake and then learn from that mistake and then just repeat that every day. Shortly after I launched Velvet Cleansing Milk, when I was still operating out of my apartment, still, you know, manufacturing in my kitchen, I thought, you know, when you formulate, you are heating the oil phase and the water phase separately, and then you heat them up until everything in the oil phase melts. I was like, I bet it doesn't have to all the way melt. I bet it'll melt once I mix it. And it didn't, and I had to put 2 gallons of Velvet Cleansing Milk into a hefty bag and take it down to the dumpster outside my apartment building. A lot of stuff like that, but I never did that again. I never mixed things that weren't melted.
Learn from your mistakes, folks. Packaging is obviously a huge deciding factor. What goes into deciding what type of packaging, the material for the packaging, especially based on each individual product?
Packaging is a really, really tricky issue because you kind of have to balance what the formula needs with the environmental impact. So for example, we have a lot of airless pump products, which prevent any air from getting into the product so that it doesn't oxidize, which is great for more sensitive formulas, especially with really sensitive actives like retinol. However, generally, airless pumps are not recyclable because they use multiple kinds of plastic in the same product. And we also, all our products are plastic, which was actually partly an environmental choice. A huge part of a skincare product's carbon footprint is shipping. It's, you know, the freight on a cargo boat from Asia to the US. And the heavier a bottle is, the fewer you can fit on that ship. And so the greater its carbon footprint is. We started out with glass bottles and they broke in transit a lot, which meant having to reship it. It kind of made more sense, even from an environmental perspective, to switch to plastic. That said, it's something that still gives me the ick sometimes of how much of an environmental impact skincare has sort of inherently. Hopefully in the not too distant future, we can have recyclable airless pumps. We can have, you know, more post-consumer material in our products. But it's also really tricky as a really small business. You know, I can't turn on a dime the way, you know, an Estee Lauder company could necessarily. And that is definitely one of the things that keeps me up at night to figure out.
And the last question I got was, how does manufacturing work? How does it work behind the scenes when you are actually mixing all the product together? Make sure you stay tuned. I have a video featuring the entire production run of Liquid Gold, where Alli explains the process from start to finish. So make sure you hit the subscribe button, notification bell, so that you know when that video goes live. Give the video a thumbs up, and down below in the comments section, let me know what is your favorite Stratia product, as well as what questions do you have for Alli in regards to formulating or running a brand. I'll make sure I'll send those questions her way. Thank you guys for watching. Bye.